Thank you. We're delighted to welcome you all our dignitaries in here this morning, well, this afternoon. Thank you all for coming. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to spend this afternoon with us. Media, kindly please, can we please start moving back? Thank you. Thank you very much. You get your pictures later. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Thank you. I know we're all happy to see old and new friends, but please take your seats so we can commence the program. Thank you very much. We'll have the opportunity to do this a little later. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate that we are all anxious to get to our seats. Please take them, and we'll have the time to exchange pleasantries and talk to our old and new friends a little later. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Right. Your Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, Your Excellency, Jeanette Kagame, the First Lady of Rwanda, the host nation for Shogim 2022. Thank you so much for being so graceful to host us here. Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all today. Now, we're here to have a high-level conversation, and I'm saying conversation because we're not here to tell each other what to do, but we're here to have a conversation concerning violence against women and girls. Now, this conversation is spearheaded by the No More campaign, a Commonwealth initiative which aims to end violence against women and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Justin Duma. I'm an actress and a media personality all the way from Ghana. I run a foundation called the JDF Foundation, which aims to empower young girls, especially where period poverty is concerned. So it's such an honor for me to be here to have this high-level conversation. Please give yourselves a round of applause. You all look amazing, and thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule to be here with us today. Without much ado, I'd like to introduce Her Excellency Jeanette Kagame, the First Lady of Rwanda. She's the founder and the chairman of Mbutu Foundation, a non-profit organization whose mission is to support the development of a healthy, educated, and prosperous society. Mrs. Kagame hosted the first African First Lady Summit on children with HIV/AIDS prevention in May 2001 in Kigali, Rwanda. Ladies and gentlemen, please give us a round of applause as we welcome the First Lady, Jeanette Kagame, Her Excellency.
Your Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, Your Excellency, the President of Sierra Leone, Your Excellency UNDSG, Commonwealth Secretary General, dear sisters, Excellency First Ladies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's with much pleasure that I once more welcome you all to Kigali. Today's topic steers well away from the colorful, vibrant, exciting buzz of our Commonwealth business forums and might lack the fun of our culture and art sessions as it should. Yet, distinguished guests, we must explore optimism, for here today we have the privilege of a prime position, prime opportunity, and prime incentive to effect real and tangible change to a problem that is as old as mankind. The elimination of violence against women and girls, or gender-based violence, falls under the 5th Sustainable Development Goal for Commonwealth nations to attain by 2030. And yet, as imminent as the 2030 stands, according to our current rate of progress in battling the social pathology, violence against women and girls is poised to outlive us and perhaps our children. Before I reinstate the theme of the gathering, ladies and gentlemen, I wished to ask one simple question, upon which I urge you all to reflect instantly or in time, audibly or silently. Honorable guests, home watchers, allow your hearts to ponder this query. How many more women and girls should be sacrificed at the stakes for the world to have its fill of rapes and teen pregnancies or domestic abuse and harassment? To those who oppose our sense of loud urgency and impatience, I would wish to know the number of additional casualties needed before it's deemed to be too much. Dear Commonwealth friends, who are the women and girls who could possibly deserve such punishment? Who should the world volunteer as its victims? Who, I ask, will we bear to see violated in this manner? Who will we allow to die? Will it be women in Southwest Asia, whose tolerance of violence is somehow expected, even in the face of excruciating acid burns and social alienation as a result of sexual assault? Will it be the female child refugee who, already traumatized by war, will, with each act of abuse, grow less and less vocal, less visible, until one day she diminishes into oblivion? Or should we perhaps tolerate that the Western working woman in Europe or elsewhere, for all her financial power, relative to her peers in the global south, suffer vicious sexual harassment in her workplace, or perhaps, dear guest, for the sake of tradition, the world should opt once more to see the African girl child victimized. Familiar as she is with the front lines of humanitarian crisis, should she be thrown into the abysses of despair as the world postpones the perfect day to finally say no more? I believe that today is the perfect day to say no more, for yet another day may be a day too late. No more apathy. No more victim blaming, no more gaslighting, no more violence against the gender that, though bearing life, must constantly fear for their own. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm so honored and frankly so thankful to be part of this event in the presence of women and allies that have had the bravery, the integrity and the sturdy moral core to call for an end before the world was even willing to acknowledge the beginning of modern violence against women and girls. Your Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, your dedication to this cause has seen no bounds. I cannot touch upon the solutions that will be discussed today without paying tribute to the undeniable sensitivity which you, Your Royal Highness, have shown this fight. You understand that beyond the chilling statistics of rape and abuse around the world, before the socioeconomic impact of GBV, but past its horrifying banality, right there in the middle, at the crux of the matter is the story of survivors. You're aware that at the core of the gender-based violence is the power to discourage a victim from speaking out, locking them into a silence that protects and sustains the cycle of abuse. You are conscious, Your Royal Highness, of the importance of involving storytellers in this fight of compelling the arts and creative industry to embrace the raw and real tales of the ones who are imprisoned in their silence and in their pain. The toolkit that the Commonwealth Secretariat, alongside the Normo Foundation, has created to combat gender inequality is a powerful stride that engages all industries, in sectors both private and public, to defend the welfare of women in and outside of the workplace. This toolkit, which confronts the architecture of modern gender-based violence, will equip every one of us to navigate through our careers, our private and social lives, free of the threat of abuse. But ladies and gentlemen, the Commonwealth Gender Equality Toolkit is not only a document. It's a materialization of an ideology, a mode of life that must be adopted to ensure that both genders thrive equally side by side in the pursuit of progress and sustainable development. I'm eager, and I believe so is everyone present to hear, Your Royal Highness, Commonwealth Secretary General, Normo Foundation, about the further projects and initiatives you have in store for our 54-legged race to 2030. I thank you especially, Commonwealth Secretariat and the Normo Foundation, for defending the pertinence of events such as these and gathering us all here to ensure that our women and girls are at last granted the protection and validation key so desperately need and deserve. And to everyone present today, everyone watching here in Rwanda or abroad, to every individual whose heart has ached for people who were punished for their gender with violence, to every soul that has applied spirit and muscle to the eradication of this injustice, to you I say thank you for your engagement, thank you for your commitment, thank you for your humanity. You are building the bridge to a world free of gender-based violence, inch by inch and pebble by pebble. May the safety and serenity of future generations across genders and across seas salute your efforts. Thank you all for having me today, Commonwealth friends. I do hope that our country shows your warmth, hospitality, and kindness that mirrors our joy and our honor in hosting you here. Murakoze cyane. Thank you very much.
Please, let's give her another round of applause. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for that wonderful welcome address. And I'd like to borrow her words. How long are we going to sit back and watch our women and our girls face abuse, violence, rape, before we all say no more? How long? Please ponder this as we go along. Now, at this juncture, I would like us to watch the screens. We're going to play No More video for all of us.
Home. It should be a space where we all feel safe. But for some, home can be a dangerous place with no escape. But while one voice might go unheard, a chorus cannot be ignored. Together, we can help free those harmed by domestic and sexual violence. Join the chorus and say, no more.
Join the chorus and say no more. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome with a round of applause Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, as she delivers the keynote address. Please give her a round of applause as she comes up here.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge pleasure to be with you here today. But I'd first like to thank the people of Rwanda for the wonderful welcome that my husband and I have received. I have heard the saying, God spends the day elsewhere, but he always spends the night in Rwanda. And having seen a little of this beautiful country and experienced your hospitality, I can quite understand why that might be the case. Thank you for your kindness and generosity to us and the whole Commonwealth family. We were so sorry not to be able to gather here over the past 2 years and are delighted that we are now finally together. Yesterday, my husband and I visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial, the final resting place for more than 250,000 men, women and children. Our guide, who had lost both his parents in the genocide against the Tutsi, spoke to us of how, in the wake of those appalling, unfathomable events, the people of Rwanda have embraced peace and reconciliation. And he described with gentleness and humility how we all have a personal responsibility to fight the discrimination and the ideologies that lead to the destruction of others. It is in the same spirit of encouraging personal responsibility that I wish to speak to you today about a different evil that has led to the death of many thousands: violence against women and girls. The figures are shocking. Globally, nearly 1 in 3 women have been abused in their lifetime. In times of crisis, the numbers rise, as they have dramatically during the COVID pandemic. Across the Commonwealth, calls to the domestic violence helplines have increased by up to 500% over the past 2 years. Whether we are aware of it or not, we all know someone who has endured sexual or domestic abuse. We can therefore all be part of combating these heinous acts. On International Women's Day, early this year, I was profoundly touched by President Kagame's powerful message on social media, which read, "Equality is a right, not a favour." We know that Rwanda is ranked 7th in the world in terms of women's rights and opportunities. So let us bear His Excellency's words in mind as we focus on violence in the home against women and girls today. And remember that we are seeking rights, not favours. We are seeking rights that have been denied to women and girls in every part of the world. Joanna Simpson in the UK, beaten to death by her husband while her 2 small children were in the next door room. Noreen in Pakistan, whose husband, a drug addict, routinely abused her and alternatively threw her out of the house or forbade her to go outside. And Uwela Vera Umazua, murdered in Nigeria as she studied in church. These stories are heartbreaking, but given the statistics I've just quoted, they're sadly not unusual. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here with one purpose: to find solutions. It is surely significant that every single member state has unanimously agreed to support the Commonwealth Says No More campaign and to implement initiatives to prevent domestic violence and sexual abuse. There is power in this alliance. In the strength of unity, we, the women and men of the Commonwealth, stand with victims and survivors who, despite the temptation to hide away in silence, speak up so others know they are not alone. Whether in Africa, Asia, Europe, the Pacific, the Caribbean, or the Americas. In doing so, we have the opportunity to end gender-based violence and those laws and practices that discriminate against women. And each one of us must take personal responsibility not to let this opportunity be lost. Now, I should like to close by quoting a speech given 75 years ago by my mother-in-law, the Queen, in Cape Town. As we work together, let's be inspired by Her Majesty's words, her example, and her deep love for the Commonwealth, which in 2009, Rwanda joined as a new partner and friend. If we all go forward together with an unwavering faith, a high courage, and a quiet heart, we shall be able to make this ancient Commonwealth, which we all love so dearly, an even grander thing, more free, more prosperous, more happy, and a more powerful influence for good in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Highness, for that apt keynote address. I shall now introduce the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, Queen's Counsel. She took office as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth in April 2016. She serves the 54 governments and 2.4 billion people of the Commonwealth, and the first woman to hold this role. A lawyer by profession, she became the first Black and youngest woman to ever be appointed Queen's Counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, Patricia Scotland.
Your Royal Highness, the First Lady Kagame of the Republic of Rwanda, Your Excellencies, Prime Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and a privilege to follow such magnificent women. Women who are in the lead, who could have chosen to be silent, but who have bravely, with great courage, spoken on behalf of so many women who have no one to speak for them. So as we gather here today, we are speaking for all of those who've been injured, betrayed, deserted, punished for just being themselves. And I want, on behalf of all of us, to thank sincerely the First Lady of Rwanda and Her Royal Highness for setting us on the right path. Many of you will know that the battle against domestic violence has been one of the battles I've been engaged in since I was 21. And before you think this is a personal battle, I need to make it clear on behalf of all the men in this room that I had the most fantastic father and 7 brilliant brothers who were referred to by the 5 sisters, of which I was one, as the Magnificent 7. I believed men were charming and generous and kind and loving. And the first time I realized that my experience was not the experience of every woman, I was shocked, and I was 21. And since that time, both as a lawyer, as a parliamentarian, and now as Secretary General, I have been absolutely determined that we should cast a different light on the plight of so many women. And the Commonwealth Says No More was born out of our joint collective determination across the Commonwealth that our past would no longer be our future. And so I want to thank absolutely everyone who is going to contribute today. I want to thank my dear sister, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, not just for being with us today, but being with us always on this journey. I want to thank in advance also Your Excellency Abdullah Shahid, President of the UN General Assembly, for being the representative for all the male allies who are here. And we salute you and welcome you. It takes a huge effort for every single person in this room to be here. But we have to remember something incredibly important, because 28 years ago, there was the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women. But 28 years ago, in this beautiful country, where, as Her Royal Highness says, the Lord comes home to sleep every night, 1994 was a terrible year. It was the year of the genocide. It was the year when many women, many women, were suffering the most egregious forms of assault. And it's really important when we're thinking of hope. Can we have hope to expunge the 1 in 3 women who suffer from domestic violence? It's really important to just look at what Rwanda did, because Rwanda is our light, is our hope, because Rwanda made a decision that they would not accept the past, that they would make a new future where there would be peace, there would be celebration of womanhood. And look at where Rwanda is today. 64% of the parliamentarians are women. More than 50% of the cabinet are women. But what has happened over those 28 years appears like a miracle. And let's be frank, we now need a miracle to address the pandemic, which is domestic violence, because there is still in our world today the 1 in 3 that both the First Lady and Her Royal Highness have spoken about. And we have to say, no more, no more. We here in the Commonwealth represent 1/3 of humanity. And if we can come together, and if we can be the difference, then the rest of the world may be willing to follow us. And just so you can encapsulate what 1 in 3 women means, I want us each to just think about all the women you know, all the women and girls you love, all the women whom you cherish, and line them up in front of your eye, and then count 1 in 3. 1 in 3. It is a truly shocking, painful number. So what did we do? We knew that there were ways to change that paradigm, that domestic violence knows no boundaries. The First Lady said so. It doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, you're rich, you're poor, you are intelligent, or you are not as skilled as you'd like to be. It is totally indiscriminate. And that's the terrible, disgusting thing about violence against women. But here's the good thing. Because it's the same everywhere, once we find the DNA of how to deal with it, we can use that everywhere. And that is what we, all the member states in this room, all the member states of the Commonwealth and no more have done. We've put together what works. And I know that as a result of you being here today and what we will do today, we will change and we will save lives. So if anyone asks you, why did you come to this breakfast and what did you achieve? Tell them today, I took the first step to make sure that I saved a life. And for that, I give you my heartfelt thanks. We can do this. All we have to do, each of us, is choose. I have always chosen. The First Lady has always chosen. Her Royal Highness has always chosen. And don't mistake, it takes courage to get up on this stage. It takes courage to say what the First Lady has said and what Her Royal Highness has said. But that courage is shared by all of you. So I'm going to thank you in advance, not just for what you've done before coming today, but I'm going to thank you on behalf of all those women and girls and young men that you will change. I'm going to thank you in advance for what you will do by implementing the toolkit to be the difference that we can make in the world. And I'll say what my mother would say to all of you, and may God bless you for caring enough to do it. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Secretary General, for your message. Please, let's give another round of applause. Today, we're all going to take a pledge to help save a life, the life of a young girl, the life of a woman. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Now, moving on, we'd like to welcome a short message from the National Chapter, Cyprus Says No More.
Hello from Cyprus. We are Bonsai Group, operators of the Body Shop Cyprus and representatives of Cyprus Says No More. Back in the beginning of 2021, the Body Shop International and No More had a cooperation addressing the crucial issue of domestic violence and sexual abuse.
We were amazed, stunned, and horrified by the data and statistics that came our way. We couldn't believe the amount of violence and abuse that exists in our modern world today, and even more so on a local level. So it was at that point when we decided that as a business, we had to become actively involved and do something about it.
We have set up a website to include a 4-digit 24/7 helpline. We have run a self-love campaign which includes book donations on self-love issues and preparing goodie bags with first need products that were donated to the Limassol shelter. We have used the Body Shop stores and social media followers to promote No More activities. We have created a fictional character called Fiona who regularly posts on media for issues on violence. We have connected our loyalty programs with Cyprus Says No More. So now, every time a customer makes a purchase in our stores, an amount is donated to the Cyprus Says No More. We have collaborated with professional psychologists and life coaches, and we have prepared talks on domestic violence and sexual abuse.
We took part in No More 5K run, and we're now in the process of starting a global marathon under the name Break the Chain of Silence for awareness purposes. We have helped SPAVO towards the creation of the House of Women, a core requirement following the Istanbul Convention at the capital city of Nicosia by preparing the outdoor areas, and also created the children's playing ground in the Limassol shelter. We also created a film featuring the scientific associate of the organization, elaborating and addressing the issue of domestic violence and sexual abuse. We have helped towards the creation of legislation against sexism in women by having our legal department review the legislation and providing feedback to the creator of the legislation, Ms. Anita Dimitriou. We have also been invited to attend a talk about the legislation where we were thanked for our feedback and help. Quoting from the speech, many thanks to Cyprus Says No More, whose help in the preparation of the legislation was priceless.
For sure, we are here, and we will do our very best to offer back to the society and protect the weak. We need to break the chain of silence. We need to say enough. We need to say no more.
I'd like to end this short video by quoting our founder, Anita Roddick, that said, "Business can be used as a force for good, and being a part of this global family, we tend to honor this statement." Indeed, businesses can take a much deeper meaning and a crucial role when it comes to addressing important issues such as violence and sexual abuse.
We absolutely need to break the chain. We all need to say no more. That was a wonderful video. Now, please, if there's anyone in here or anyone watching via our live feed and is affected by what is being discussed, there are people in the room you can reach out to, and to our online viewers, there'll be a link where it says No More Global Directly, where you will receive support and get available addresses, and where you can actually share all your concerns. So we're here for you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have Ms. Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, the Chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Group, join us today. Please give her a round of applause as she comes to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you. Your Excellency, my sister, the First Lady of Rwanda, Jeanette Kagame, Your Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, President of Sierra Leone, who is with us, a he for she. Today, Excellencies, First Ladies, our women foreign ministers, it's wonderful to be with you here today. Let me begin by just taking a moment. I'm stealing this from the program, but I think it's really worth that we all do it. We just talked about those online who might reach out to us in this room. But I think, could we take a moment and stand up for the women through this particular meeting that we have will lose their lives or will be meted out with violence that is indescribable. Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, over the past 2 years, there has been an unprecedented increase in all forms of gender-based violence, particularly in our homes, but also in public and online spaces. What we have today is a silent pandemic, and what we're trying to do today is give voice to that pandemic so that we can bring an end to it. Since the beginning of COVID-19, nearly 1 in 2 women reported that they or a woman or a girl that they knew experienced some form of violence or died at the hands of that violence. Reflect for a moment that in this room, someone has been a victim or a survivor, or someone has supported women and girls. I'd like to remind us all that today, as we see the conflict in Ukraine, it's not just the lives that are lost, but it is the thousands of women that are experiencing gender-based violence. I'd like to remind us that 10 days ago I was in Central Asia, went to a center, and in that center I saw what I'd not seen before, because a few weeks earlier I'd been in Indonesia, and when I had gone to speak to women who had been affected by gender-based violence, it was a one-on-one in a room that they were shielded, they didn't want anyone to know, they were being protected. But in this country in Central Asia, what I saw was over 203 women that day who had come for services that had been opened to them. They were not ashamed, they were standing up, and they were saying, this is unacceptable in our society, we're coming for help. For mental health, there were girls, there were old women. And for me, that was the beginning of healing in that society, because people were ready to stand up and they were ready to be seen and to look for the support they needed from a community. They wanted to see an end to violence. Conflict, social isolation, restrictions on movement and economic fallout have all contributed to this increase. The pandemic has proven a real threat to progress made towards achieving the SDGs and on advancing the most important goal of all, Goal 5 on gender equality and women's empowerment. And of course, in the elimination of all forms is what we speak to today. The pandemic has also laid bare the weaknesses of our systems to address the needs of survivors, while the emergence of new conflicts has further increased the risk of conflict-related sexual violence. Yet, despite these challenges, I am heartened that in the 2 years since the Secretary-General had a call on a ceasefire in homes, many governments, civil society organizations and other partners have taken action. By the end of 2021, our research showed that more than 1,600 gender-sensitive measures had been taken across 196 countries, the Commonwealth amongst them. And this in response to just the pandemic. Of these, over half focused on stepping up actions to address violence against women and girls. And so there is hope, with a very big H-O-P-E. There is hope, because that's what we have to give to the women that are listening to us online today and those who may be victims tomorrow. These actions ranged from funding women's rights organizations, and that is so important, to integrating measures to end violence into pandemic responses and the recovery plans. Other measures supported services for survivors, because we know that if we don't have the data, that what we don't count just is not seen. The Secretary-General's political engagement strategy on gender-based violence has also mobilized the UN system around a zero-tolerance policy and the services for survivors. So, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in spite of the crisis, we have so much more good news, and we need to fill the glass that is some full. Civil society and governments are finding new ways to work together, tackle the scourge of the violence against women. The Spotlight initiative, that is our partnership with the European Union. It is the first time that such a huge amount of resources were put behind gender-based violence, €500 million. But also the Generation Equality Forum, where civil society has led and has shown the way in Mexico, in France, and that we have seen thousands of commitments that are made. Led by governments, what we are seeing today is that the initiative and programs have helped to provide 1.6 million women and girls in more than 25 countries across the globe. 2.5 million young people have joined programs promoting gender equitable norms and values. 130 million have been reached through campaigns to change behavior and mindsets. And we have seen at the same time civil society organizations convening again and again with over 1,000 commitments towards ending this scourge. And I've just laid out a number the numbers to the people here, but they've all got faces, they all have families. And as I spoke earlier, there are many victims, but there are many more survivors. What is important to that is to say, what are the survivors beyond the women to the children that witness, the children we don't think witness, because as it's happening to us, we think we can hide it for them. But they hear the noises, they see the scars, and they keep really quiet until much later on in life, what you have as a child, reliving those experiences, because we did not take the time to look to the left, to the right, to see who else was affected by this. I really do congratulate the innovative collaboration between the Commonwealth Secretariat and all its member states, and the No More Foundation for building these effective and collaborative pathways to address the end to violence against women and girls. I sincerely applaud the leadership and the commitment of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cornwall. Your voice is deeply valued and it is so needed, but also to presidents and leaders like President Bio here, because it comes from leadership. It comes from you saying no more. If President Bio can say no more in Sierra Leone, I can tell you that that will have an effect on many men who will question what it is they do if the President says so. And so the No More campaign and the toolkits that will be provided are really for us to use, not to take away and keep on our shelves, but to use. These efforts are needed at a time when rights are under assault, women's rights under assault in many places around the world. We need to push back against this. Together, we need to seize the opportunity to transform structures of inequality, discrimination, change that power dynamic, and put ourselves firmly on the path towards gender equality. Our call to member states, to civil society, to partners in the private sector is that we need to see greater investment in the longer-term prevention measures so that we can address the root causes of this violence. Critical that strategies to prevent the gender-based violence are addressed. But I also invite everyone to join the No More campaign. Your leadership and your action on violence against women are needed now more than ever. If ever there was needed solidarity, for which we have found short in the world over the last 3 years, it is now, when every girl, every woman deserves and has the right to live a life without fear. And so I would love it if you would join me just by saying, no more. I didn't hear you. No more. Thank you so much.
We are grateful to the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations for her remarks. No more. Let's do it one more time. No more. Thank you. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you. Please help me welcome His Excellency Abdullah Shahid, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, to deliver his opening remarks. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Your Excellency Janet Kagame, First Lady of Rwanda, Your Royal Highness the Duchess of Cornwall, Your Excellency the President of Sierra Leone, the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Your Excellency Amina Mohammed, United Nations Deputy Secretary General, First Ladies, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Violence against women was pervasive even before the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, affecting 1 in 3 women and girls around the world. Yet, the virus's emergence has compounded the underlying realities of sexism and gender-based violence. As the Deputy Secretary General reminded us, since its spread, 1 in every 2 women report that they or a woman they know have experienced some form of violence and abuse. This silent and hidden shadow pandemic reached alarming heights as the isolation and social distancing measures enacted to contain the viral spread placed many victims in lockdown with their abusers. Very often, those abusers were their own partners or spouses. When we speak of COVID-19's exacerbation of gender-based violence, we must realize that the underlying issue is not the virus itself, but the fundamental imbalance of power in our societies. This imbalance is rooted in the belief that violence towards women and girls is normal or appropriate behavior and is condoned by society. Violence against women and girls takes many forms. This includes sexual assault, domestic violence, female genital mutilation, so-called honor crimes, and forced marriage. This violence is ongoing. As we speak, an additional 13 million girls are at risk of forced marriage. Excellencies, dear friends, violence against women and girls is not only a human rights violation, which upends the security and safety of its victims, but it also impedes women and girls' chance of being full and equal participants in our society. The trauma and scars of abuse can endure for the entirety of their lives. Children in violent households are 3 to 9 times more likely to be injured and abused. Violence and the threat of violence can stop girls from going to school, from being able to choose if and who they marry, and from reaching their full potential. Throughout history, conflict has also played a major role in exacerbation of gender-based violence. As an example, the violence endured by women and girls during the genocide against the Tutsi had served impacts on their lives of victims and survivors, of their families, and on the country at large. These physical and psychological consequences cannot be overstated and must be addressed. It is important that we combat violence against women and girls by empowering them and by reversing their legacies of gender inequality. This will require addressing discriminatory attitudes and beliefs, gender stereotypes, and social norms that tolerate and perpetuate violence and abuse. Parents, educators, and policymakers all share a collective responsibility to challenge the underlying belief that violence is a normal means of communication for boys and men. The Education Summit in 2022 will be a useful opportunity to leverage momentum and to promote principles of equality through education initiatives. Media also has a role to play in challenging harmful gender norms, including stereotypes that idealize violence and aggression in men and boys, and submissiveness in women and girls. Ending gender-based discrimination and violence is a global priority that requires urgent collective action, which needs to be consistent with and incorporated into our recovery from COVID-19 policies. As we endeavor to get back on track to meet in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we must keep in mind that eradicating violence against women is critical to achieving each and every one of the SDGs. One of the most impactful levers to combat violence against women and girls is SDG 5, which directly mandates us not to merely promote, but to achieve gender equality. Solutions must be context-specific and should speak to different regions and countries that need. And those solutions must step into the efforts and expertise of stakeholders across the board, harnessing the energies of all of society. In that same spirit, I take the opportunity to congratulate the government of Rwanda for the innovative and holistic approaches taken to end violence against women and girls and child domestic abuse through the Isange One-Stop Central Model. This initiative was launched by Rwanda in 2009 to facilitate victims' access to support services such as counseling, filing police reports, and legal counsel. Many similar centers have opened in the country since, and these efforts are highly commendable. Ladies and gentlemen, we must promote women's and girls' autonomy and choice, and we must guarantee the right of women and girls to live a life free from violence. In these endeavors, we must redouble our collective efforts. The path to preventing and combating violence against women lies in the improvement of protection and services for survivors and the implementation of measures to ensure their safety and security. It is our duty to work together on initiatives and mechanisms to prevent this systematic problem from being exacerbated. Prevention is the only way to stop violence before it even occurs. Together, we can tackle the roots of the problem rather than simply addressing its symptoms. Together, we should raise our voice and say, no more, no more, no more. I thank you.
Please, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you so much. His Excellency Abdullah Shahid. Now, at this juncture, I would like to crave your indulgence as you watch the screens as we take a message from His Excellency Tanitu Mamu, the President of Kiribati.
As the President of the Republic of Kiribati, I am very happy to join the Commonwealth in saying no more to domestic and sexual violence. Domestic and sexual violence impacts 1 in 3 women worldwide, and in some places the prevalence can even be higher and distressingly concerning. But it doesn't only destroy women's lives, it also takes a huge toll on children, families and communities, our economies, supporting systems and potential as a human race. This form of violence is a pervasive violation of human rights, and we must do all we can to stop it. COVID-19 measures imposed by governments around the world have further increased the risk for women, as homes are no longer the safest place for victims of domestic violence. In this trying time, and with increased incidents of such violence, our global community can and must do better. We all have an important role to play. Please join me in committing to speak up and take rigorous action straight away. No more waiting for the cost of waiting, and taking no action can be disastrous. Let's stop the silence on violence and make every home a safe and peaceful haven for all women and all girls around the globe. Say no more. Together, we can all do it.
Say no more. Together, we can all do it. We're very grateful to His Excellency Tanitu Mamu, the President of Kiribati, for his message. I'll now invite Her Excellency Mrs. Fatima Mada Jabe Bio, the First Lady of Sierra Leone. She's a former actress, screenwriter, film producer, and has participated in various Nollywood movies, projects, as well as other acting projects in the United Kingdom. Now, she's a strong believer in women's empowerment as a key to sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Excellency Fatima.
Thank you, Jocelyn. You forget to say we are friends. Your Royal Highness, my dear sister, First Lady of the Republic, Rwanda, she said I should not call her auntie. I'm now crying. Your Excellency, my dear husband, retired Brigadier Julius Maribio, Excellencies, my dear sisters, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking all of us who have refused to stay silent about violence against women. Our voices and our efforts are the only source of hope for our survivors and our helpless victims today. We must stand up, we must advocate, and we must mobilize communities, stakeholders, government, development partners, decision and policy makers to bring concerted action to stop this global menace because this is a global menace. We must start with sustained local and national actions driven by a clear agenda for all. You know, when we come to this meeting, there must be an agenda for women. Why must it be an agenda for women? Why won't we just come and celebrate women? Why would they not just allow us to take our rightful places and just sit as human beings, as people who were part of this global family, so that we can feel safe and be safe, because that's not a privilege. That is every woman's right. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Madabio, not because he is my husband, but because he is one man who have declared national emergency on rape and sexual violence against women in Sierra Leone. He had established a one-stop center for survivors of rape. He has implemented a national male involvement strategy so young men see themselves as critical agents of change. That's very important, because if we come here as women and we decide to talk to one another, we're wasting our time. We need to talk to the other party, and the other party are the men. We need to get the men involved in what we do. We need to nurture our sons so they understand the value of a woman. Mr. President, I want to say thank you so very much. Now, we have reviewed the Sexual Offences Act to provide for a faster trial and a stiffer penalties. We don't want to have people in prison, but we're looking for solution in Sierra Leone. And we have established a sexual offences model court that has registered higher conviction rate. Now offenders are tried faster and kept in jail away from other victims for a minimum of 15 years under the leadership of His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Madabio. We have also intensified our public advocacy around violence against women and girls. With my Hands Off Our Girls national campaign in Sierra Leone, we urge communities to be no longer complicit or to be bystanders. We emphasize that we all have an obligation to oppose and to seize harmful cultural practices and attitude, and we have fully mobilized our communities. We have gotten all our communities involved, especially people in authorities, such like the paramount chiefs, our religious leaders, the wives of paramount chiefs, the teachers, the security forces, civil society organizations, the media, and the school children themselves. The Hands Off Our Girls campaign has now become a national platform where the state and non-state actors have the opportunity to have direct conversation with our girls on issues relating to their rights, their dignity, and their health. Education is a very huge factor if we're talking about gender equality around the world. In Sierra Leone today, education is a great tool of empowerment for our girls. My office worked with the government of Sierra Leone in supporting of enrolling more girls in the free quality education. We also campaign for retention and the completion of all girls. Also, because girls lose almost 80 learning days a year as a result of the stigma around menstruation, my office has provided free sanitary pads and dignity kits for school-going girls, and we continue to bring awareness. We continue to raise awareness on menstrual hygiene, because that is also another taboo subject in Africa. We have campaigned against early marriage. Early marriage, in my book, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is a legalized way of saying rape is acceptable. We cannot allow our kids to be forced into any form of early marriage, because that is rape. We are campaigning against teenage pregnancy, and child trafficking. And the government have overturned the ban on pregnant girls in school as part of our radical inclusion strategy. Well, with this radical inclusion strategy, does it mean the government of Sierra Leone wants our girls to be pregnant? But in a situation where a girl is raped, not because of their making, but they are raped and then they become pregnant, what do? Do you victimize them twice? His Excellency feel he cannot leave as a president to see that happen in Sierra Leone. So when a girl is victimized, he will protect them. And we bring them back to school. We make sure they finish their education so they can also be part of nation building. At the national level, the government has laid in Parliament a very progressive gender equality and women empowerment law. We are trying to be like Rwanda so that women take the lead. We want to take the lead. Let me close by proposing a number of few steps that I think we can do as a global community. We must make alliances with global partners and intensify local prevention campaigns such as we have in Sierra Leone. We must invest in providing services for survivors of violence. We must support Sierra Leone bill at the United Nations in order to create a collective global accountability mechanism by providing justice for victims of rape, knowing that violence against women and girls are government and human rights issues. It is not just a problem for the woman. This is a national and a global issue. And I think women, if we have World Toilet Day, which is a sanitation issue, we should be able to have a day to allow these women to commemorate, to feel they are part of this world. So we urge all of you who are part of the United Nations and who makes that decision to support Sierra Leone bid so that a day will be dedicated to rape victims for them to be able to commemorate what they have gone through. We are under no illusion about the enormous struggles and challenges that we face. There is much more to be done, but we have to remain optimistic and relentless in our global and collective actions to end violence against women and girls. We have to speak with one voice. Indeed, unless we speak with one voice, we will not have a solution. And we have to share best practices right across the Commonwealth in the campaign to end violence against women. We cannot have one law for this part of the Commonwealth and another law for the other part of the Commonwealth. We have to speak with one voice. I wish to thank the Commonwealth and my dear sister, Auntie Patricia, for bringing us together and for the No More campaign and for organizing this. But I want to say to Mrs. Kagame, your leadership is one that we will follow. As a young woman trying to feel myself within the space of being a First Lady, I want you to know you are a role model to me. I thank all speakers who have contributed all too brilliantly to this insightful conversation today. We are walking out of this room all inspired to do more, because doing more means we are saving humanity. I wish to express a special thanks to His Excellency President Paul Kagame and the First Lady, Madam Janet Kagame, as well as the government and people of Rwanda for their hospitality and for hosting this event. Let me take this opportunity to also thank my dear husband for his endless support towards the struggle of women in our country, Sierra Leone. As we live here, ladies and gentlemen, let us reflect on this. No more silence to rape. No more silence to early marriage. No more victimization of menstruation for our girls. We know our place as women. We want to take our rightful position. No more, and no more. And I say hands off our girls. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Fatima, who is also my friend. And yes, rightfully said, hands off our girls. Please give her another round of applause for this. It's wonderful. The more we speak up, the more we end the violence against women and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Pamela Zabala, who is a Global Chief Executive Officer for the No More Foundation. Now, she's going to set the scene for the whole system approach in addressing violence against women and girls in the Commonwealth. Please give a round of applause.
Your Royal Highness, Your Excellency, the First Lady of Rwanda, Excellencies, Ministers, and all of you with us today. I want to start by thanking the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and her fantastic team for their faith in prevention and their commitment to end gender-based violence. It is this kind of leadership that transforms the world every day. But let's start by asking ourselves a tricky question. Maybe one that will make this event not happen at all. What is an essential item to eliminate violence against women and girls and truly move forward with SDG 5? What is the secret? Is there a key ingredient? The fascinating part is that we already know that. To move this agenda forward, partnerships at every level are essential. This is the root philosophy of the framework you will see in the guidelines to achieve SDG 5, what is called the whole system approach. The framework believes that governments need to develop a system in which all departments are equally focused on eradicating domestic and sexual violence. Not only an entity like gender or the Justice Department. Gender-based violence affects every area of governance, from education and health to development and business, as it affects also productivity. A strategy must take into account the role of not only providing services for victims, which are needed, and protection through the law that is essential, but also investing in prevention to ensure that we can visualize in this room the future where we will have no violence against women and girls. If we do not do that, we run a big risk. All of us will become hamsters in a huge wheel, running towards a place that has no end. To achieve that level of government cohesion, we need leadership. Leadership that believes, and I really mean that they really believe and set an example. Leaders, as you've heard, that make this a priority of their agenda and communicate this very clearly to all their government. A second step is that nations need to invest in truly understanding the reality of where they are at in terms of progress, and from there on set very clear goals. Goals that are underpinned by a national strategy in partnership with local domestic and sexual violence services. Who will need the funding to make this happen? A common problem is that we create strategies with no funding. So as you can imagine, little progress is made. This guidance will enable the conversation to start within many of your teams. And we hope that you will find some practices that are already in place, and also that you find some ideas that will inspire you. We cannot stress how important it is to set a mechanism to collect data about gender-based violence. Only in this way will we know the true impact and achievements. Because let's remember something. Societies and individuals only make progress when they can see results, when they're achieving when evidence is not refutable. Of course, government partnerships are not the only ones needed to end domestic and sexual violence. Private sector partnerships are crucial and critical to putting prevention at the forefront. To reach many companies, the reach that many companies have to get to millions of individuals ensures that this message stays not only within the gender-based violence sector, and trust me, we love to talk to each other, but that it actually moves along and it gets to the everyday bystander in the street. NGOs also have a role to play, and we must create partnerships locally in a community coordinated response. But we also must understand that our efforts are not only local, but they are helping the global effort. It does not matter if your organization is in a village or in an urban metropole. You have a story to tell. You have a story that deserves to be heard. To this point, the No More Foundation convenes an extensive network of organizations globally and supports the creation of No More chapters, as you saw the Cyprus, and you will see some others. These campaigns are centrally coordinated by the organization and receive all of No More's support and joint branding to thrive and complement each other so they can change experiences and stories and results. We also have developed the first global directory for gender-based violence services that covers over 200 countries, including all of the Commonwealth nations. Of course, change won't happen from one event, one meeting, one conference. It will take courage and long-term commitment. It will require tangible targets and actions to actually get there. For our part, we're dedicating to working with each of the Commonwealth governments well beyond SHOGM, and we'll be providing them with guidance, resources, help, conversations to succeed in their violence prevention efforts. Together, we have the opportunity to stop the epidemic of violence that currently impacts 1 in 3 women. Let's make SHOGM 22 the moment where we all commit to join the chorus and effect positive change for the 2.5 billion people throughout the Commonwealth. Together, let's say no more.
Thank you, Pamela. Please give another round of applause. Thank you for your insights and shared experiences to work collaboratively to end violence against women and girls. At this juncture, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, and Your Excellency Jeanette would like to excuse us from this gathering as they have other events to attend. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Give them a round of applause as they take leave. Thank you so much for coming. We're very grateful for your contributions.